Could you ever forget a betrayal? Imagine this. 11 years of marriage, a child, dreams of the future. And then, in one devastating moment, everything falls apart. The protagonist of this story is an ordinary man, a hard worker, a devoted husband, a loving father, someone who gave his best to his family. But behind his back, an entirely different reality was unfolding. Suspicious messages, odd coincidences, and a single confession from his son turned his entire world upside down. What's it like to discover the truth when you least expect it? More importantly, what do you do after facing pain, deception, and betrayal when a new life is already waiting on the horizon? Want to know how he handled it all? Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you're here on my channel. If this is your first time visiting, don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button. Your support truly motivates me. Also, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Now, let's dive into the story. My wife and I are both 35 years old, and we've been married for 11 years. We live in a town that was once a quiet rural area, but is now rapidly expanding into a suburban extension of a growing metropolitan city. Back when I graduated high school, my senior class had just over 200 students. Now, that number has more than doubled to nearly 500. I was raised on a farm by my father after my mother left when I was very young and never came back. From an early age, I helped on the farm, assisting my dad until he eventually decided to lease the land to other farmers and take a factory job instead. The money from those land leases allowed him to buy additional properties during the Great Recession. One of those properties had a house, which he let me renovate to create a home for my future family. Though the property remains in a trust along with the rest of his land, my wife and I are responsible for all related expenses. My wife, on the other hand, grew up in a lower middle-class household. Her family was always warm and welcoming toward me, treating me with kindness and respect. They moved to our town when we were in junior high, and we started dating in high school. After securing stable employment, we got married. Before that, I worked any job I could find, hauling junk, painting houses, anything that would help me make ends meet. Today, we have an 8-year-old son, and my wife stays home to care for him. I work as a route driver for a major snack company, steadily growing my territory to ensure our products reach every shop, grocery store, and gas station in the region. Since much of the area is still rural, my route covers a vast distance. Our long-term plan was for my wife to eventually take over a second truck as our business expanded. With a major grocery supercenter set to open next year, gaining full ownership of my route could have been a game-changer for us. We've been together since shortly after high school, and while our marriage has been filled with love, it hasn't been without its struggles, especially due to my demanding work schedule. I try to be present for my family, but I often fall short. Even so, we've shared many happy moments, and we both adore our son. He's your typical energetic kid, always diving into sports. In winter, he played basketball. In spring, it was baseball. Now, he's all about flag football. This past spring, our marriage hit a rough patch. We both felt a growing tension and had an open, honest conversation about it, promising to work on our relationship. From late April to mid-June, our intimacy skyrocketed. It was like we couldn't get enough of each other. Juggling work and this renewed passion was exhausting, but I managed to stay on top of my route while also making sure to be there for our son's baseball season. I never missed a game, though my hectic schedule meant I couldn't attend many practices. It's common for dads to volunteer as assistant coaches, but that just wasn't an option for me. My wife, however, stepped in whenever she could. Our son's baseball coach, Benjamin, was someone I knew well. He had been married to one of my closest friends from high school, Miranda. She was the brightest student in our class, and after college, she met Benjamin. They got married young and had a son the same age as ours. Unfortunately, their marriage fell apart 3 years ago. Miranda moved back to town, relying on her parents for childcare. Benjamin followed about a year later, likely to be closer to his son, perhaps even hoping to reconcile with Miranda. By June, my wife and I had started slipping back into our usual routines. In July, we had another serious conversation, once again reaffirming our commitment to each other, hoping to reconnect. We even went on vacation, But while it helped momentarily, the spark between us remained inconsistent. Then, in mid-August, our passion reignited. But by September, it had faded once more. It was around that time that our son started playing flag football. I was thrilled when I finally made it to one of my son's football practices one evening. However, what caught me off guard was seeing my wife standing right beside Benjamin, clipboard in hand, actively helping run drills. A handful of other dads were also involved, but she seemed especially engaged. Later that night, when I casually asked her about it, our son eagerly jumped in before she could respond. "Mom's not just helping. She's a coach," he proudly corrected me. Apparently, when she had signed him up for the league, she had also volunteered for a coaching position. Before long, it became a major commitment for her. She was constantly on her phone, mostly texting, sometimes making calls. When I was around, it was almost always just texts. Every afternoon after school, she and our son would head over to Benjamin's house, where he trained both boys together. The extra sessions were paying off. Our son and Benjamin's son were quickly becoming standout players on the team. Then came the first game. That morning, I wrapped up my shift and went straight to the field. As I settled in to watch, I noticed my wife and Benjamin standing side by side, giving instructions to the team. Just as I got comfortable, someone pulled up a chair next to mine. It was Miranda. We watched the game together, chatting casually until halftime. Then she turned to me with a serious expression and asked, "How's your marriage?" I told her everything was fine, but she didn't look convinced. After a brief pause, she shared something that sent a chill down my spine. On a rainy afternoon, when practice had been canceled, the boys stayed inside Benjamin's house, playing video games. At one point, Miranda's son went to the kitchen for a drink. That's when he saw it, Benjamin and my wife kissing. Stunned, he quietly slipped back to the game, later confiding in Miranda about what he had witnessed. That night, something inside me shifted. The next morning, as usual, I woke up at 4 a.m. to make the 45-minute drive to my warehouse for work. But that Monday, I set my alarm even earlier, 3:30 a.m. While my wife was still asleep, I reached for her phone. After several failed attempts, I finally cracked her passcode. As I scrolled through her messages, I found exactly what I feared. An endless string of texts, some explicit, along with revealing photos she had sent. Without hesitation, I took screenshots of everything. From that moment forward, nothing was the same. I typically reserve one day each week to stay in town, but occasionally, I'd make a surprise trip home for lunch, especially during times when our relationship felt closer. I wanted to believe things were getting better, yet more than once when I called to check in, I found the house empty. My calls often went unanswered. I started paying closer attention. More than once, as I passed Benjamin's house, I saw her car parked in his driveway. One evening, after finishing work, I drove by again. There it was. When I confronted her about it, she casually brushed it off, claiming she had been out shopping. She apologized for not being home when I dropped by, and I played along, telling her it was just an unplanned visit, nothing to worry about. But the next week, I decided to be intentional about my visit home for lunch. This time, I told her in advance. Then, instead of heading straight home, I parked a short distance from Benjamin's place and waited. Somehow, she didn't notice my truck. A few minutes later, she rushed outside, got into her car, and sped off toward home. I followed at a normal pace. By the time I walked to the front door, she was already in the kitchen, casually preparing a sandwich for me. We sat down and had a light-hearted conversation over lunch as if nothing had happened. That Saturday, after my son's game, I took him home so he could change before dropping him off at my father's house for a fishing trip. I told him he could even go for a swim if he wanted. When I returned home, the house was empty. She was gone again. As I drove past Benjamin's house, I wasn't surprised to see her car parked outside. Taking a deep breath, I dialed her number. When she finally picked up, her tone was laced with irritation. "What are you doing there?" I asked. "Silence." I told her, "Get dressed and come home." By the time she walked through the door, I was already seated at the table, waiting. She stormed in, furious, immediately accusing me of making baseless accusations. I remained calm and gestured for her to sit down. She refused, growing more defensive with every passing second. Firmly, I told her to stop yelling and take a seat. I had something to show her. She demanded to know what was in the folder I had in front of me, but I insisted she sit first. Reluctantly, she did. Then, one by one, I placed the printed screenshots of her text messages in front of her. Her anger flared, and she lashed out at me for going through her phone. But the moment I revealed the explicit photo she had sent, all the fight drained from her. That was it. I told her she had until the following Sunday to pack her belongings. On Monday, I'd be meeting with a lawyer. She was to take only her clothes and personal items. The rest could be sorted later. Tears welled up in her eyes as she broke down, apologizing over and over. I asked her a question I had once seen in an advice column. What did you think was going to happen? She had no answer. There was nothing left to say. Since then, I've been staying at my father's house. That Sunday, I brought my son back home so he could catch the bus for school the next morning. Sitting him down, I gently explained that while his mother and I wouldn't be living together anymore, he would still stay in his home. When I returned that evening, all of her things were gone. We had agreed that she would pick up our son after school. She could either stay at the house with him until I got home or take him to her parents' place. Regardless of what had happened between us, she was still his mother, and we had to figure out co-parenting. The divorce is now in progress, and she will officially be served next week. However, I won't humiliate her by making it a public spectacle. I've already informed her that the papers are coming. She asked to retrieve a few more items from the house, but my lawyer advised against it. If she wanted anything, she would have to file a formal request through the court. Truthfully, I'm not overly attached to most of the household belongings, so she'll likely get whatever she asks for. Interestingly, she hasn't requested any clothing or makeup. People often ask what she's doing now. She's living with her parents, and our son spends his afternoons there until I finish work. I've adjusted my schedule to leave by 5 p.m., avoiding extra hours so I can be home for him. My lawyer is also coordinating with another attorney to ensure my business remains protected throughout the divorce. Even my father has stepped in, offering to purchase my work route and keep me on as an employee if necessary. I know child support is inevitable and custody will be shared. The nights feel lonelier after my son goes to bed, but I'm finding ways to stay busy. A few personal projects have helped me focus. Friends have been incredibly supportive, some offering to babysit, others dropping off meals. Last Saturday, at my son's game, something unexpected happened. Instead of parents spreading out along the sidelines as usual, many pulled their chairs closer to mine. That small gesture meant a lot. There's just one more game before the playoffs, and then the season will wrap up. Basketball season's around the corner, and nearly every parent I've spoken with has said they'll be requesting that Benjamin not be assigned as their child's coach. People have also been curious about Miranda. She's been a close friend for years, and some wonder if we'll end up together. Right now, my focus is on healing and adjusting to this new reality. My priority is being the best father I can be. Miranda truly is exceptional. I once mentioned she was the smartest student in our class, and I still believe that, but I feel like I'd only hold her back. Besides, she has her own challenges to face. Her ex recently moved back, possibly hoping for reconciliation. This chapter of my life has come to an end. Trust is a foundation of any relationship. Once broken, it's nearly impossible to rebuild. Betrayal isn't just about infidelity. It's about destroying years of shared experiences and love. When problems arise in a marriage, they should be faced together, not avoided through deception. The truth always comes out, and once trust is shattered, things can never be the same. But betrayal doesn't have to define the rest of your life. It can be a chance to reflect, learn, and move forward toward a future built on honesty, respect, and genuine love. What are your thoughts? Share them in the comments, my friend. If you enjoyed this story, check out more content on my channel. I'll sign off for now. See you in the next.